Kia ora tātou. I'm RossBell. I'm the Executive Director of the New Zealand Drug Foundation, and it's the foundation and our colleagues at Hapai who have put today on. Before I start, I just want to acknowledge two things. Our Fijian whānau who are cleaning up after some devastation up there, and also our whānau in Canterbury who are marking the 5th anniversary of the 22nd Feb earthquake. I'd like to welcome you all. We never know when we put these things on who's going to show up, and so a range of people have showed up. For all you drug users, the police are here. You can tell they drive shiny cars. So we have our colleagues from the police, we have some drug treatment people here, community action workers, some government folks. So quite a diverse audience, and you're probably wondering, what are we here for? It might surprise you to learn that I don't speak te reo Māori. I speak some form of English. So in a pōwhiri, when you can't speak te reo, you get a gist of what's going on, but not a full understanding. It's always a very warm welcome, and our visiting VIP from America, who was at the pōwhiri, was Shane White was giving a running translation. So Sanho has a good sense of the nature of the welcome and of that whole process. Well, I may not speak te reo Māori, but I'm from Wellington, and we speak our own language down there. And today we're speaking the language of global drug policy. I'm hoping throughout this morning that we might help demystify all of this thing around global drug policy and what it means for New Zealand. So we're talking about this thing called UNGAS. Has anyone heard of UNGAS? What the hell is an UNGAS? Not many people. The UNGAS is the United Nations General Assembly Special Session on Drugs. And so throughout this morning, there's going to be a lot of Wellington or policy speak. That's just so I can get one over on you. But the purpose of the day is to unpick this thing called UNGAS and to figure out, is it relevant? And if it is, what does it mean? What does it mean for New Zealand? So we have a range of speakers this morning who are going to help us through that process. So we've got three speakers from New Zealand who will have some views, and then we'll give a very warm welcome later to our visiting friend from Washington DC, Sanho Tree, who's going to look at this global stuff. I think that this stuff is kind of important, and hopefully at the end of the session you'll figure out that there is some relevance to New Zealand. This thing called UNGAS is happening very soon. What UNGAS is a 3-day hui at the United Nations headquarters in April. And it's a 3-day meeting where all the countries of the world come together to debate and discuss the world drug problem and what we're going to do about it. And you probably have a sense of the United Nations. There's a diversity. So there's a different views in this room. You can imagine how that looks at the United Nations headquarters. There's a diversity of views. There's countries who have very good health-focused drug laws, and there's other countries who execute people who use drugs. And so what they're hoping to achieve over 3 days at this global hui is some consensus. Now, how can you find consensus between countries who respect human rights and provide treatment and so on with those countries that execute people who use drugs? So that's an interesting thing, and how New Zealand will inject its views into that process is going to be interesting. Where will New Zealand align itself? I also think this stuff is also kind of important for New Zealand for this reason. that we have an approach to drugs. I'll just wear, on my sleeve. There'll be no illusion about where I stand on drug law after this. We have an approach in New Zealand to our drug problem, which we've been doing for 40 years. So our drug law, the Misuse of Drugs Act, commiserated its 40th anniversary in October last year. And that's a law that does certain things to certain people. And we think that's a law that creates a barrier to people who need help. So we are an organisation that thinks the law should change and that we should instead put much more focus on helping people rather than criminalising people. Some of the speakers you're about to hear from have a different point of view, and the good thing about having a hui on a marae is that you can have those different points of view. We don't need to find consensus, we're not the United Nations. But there's also one other purpose to this hui. That we've been tasked, the Foundation and Hapai and others have been tasked to gather the different views that exist around this, around drugs and what we should do to help people or to fight the drug problem. So we've been tasked with gathering people's views and taking that to the United Nations meeting, to this UNGAS. And also the government, New Zealand government, has invited us to take the views from this hui and another one we have tomorrow to government, so that we can help the New Zealand government shape its position at UNGAS. So it's a bizarre but a neat little opportunity to spend a morning in Auckland and shape global drug policy and the New Zealand government's thinking. And there's a whole session at the end. We've got a free-flowing question and answer session at the end. So my advice to you is don't leave this room with any unanswered question. We've got some very clever people in the room who can help unpick some of your questions. And it's my privilege now to hand over to my colleague Lance Norman from Hapai. Thank you, sir, for pulling this together for us. And please, over to you.
Yeah.